Good afternoon, folks. My name's Sandy. This is Sawing with Sandy. Welcome back to my sawmill. Just a minute ago, you saw me unload some logs from my log loader trailer. That log loader trailer is by Wallenstein, the LXT95. That thing helps me to bring logs from all around the woods here out to places like my sawmill. Now, why I unloaded these ones is because they're either undersized or they're frozen into a big clump. And so I'm going to leave them to thaw out here just a little bit, or I'm going to leave them for another day when I'll use them for another purpose. And underneath of those, I've got some logs that I'm ready to process today on my sawmill. So these logs here, I probably have 6 or 7 or 8 of them. I'm going to cut those so that they end up looking like these. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be able to remove the bark and leave that nice finish with my sawmill. But what I am going to be able to do is cut them so that there's 2 flat sides. That's where the sawmill comes in. Eventually, once I cut the 2 flat sides on the sawmill, I'll be taking those logs back up near my shop where I'll use that log peeling disc. And with the help of my grinder and that log peeling disc, we'll get that nice finish on the 2 remaining sides. So that's sort of the beginning of the process here. That's what we're going to be up against. I like to use the log loader trailer here because I can back it in nice and tight. And I just basically have to maneuver the log in between the opening and the sawmill shed, get it right up here in the sawmill. And the old Woodland Mills here make short work of it. So that's what we're up against. I'm glad you're all here to join me. Here we go. Well, as the sawmill warms up, just to give you some context, that's the Woodland Mills HM130max. This sawmill is on top of a trailer that has 1 extension. That allows me to make cuts up to just under 17 feet. Now that sawmill's got the 14 horsepower Kohler with the electric start. Just a moment ago, you saw me do a cold start. The sawmill's been sitting for probably 2.5 weeks and well fired right up quite nicely. I just tend to use premium fuel in it, which tends to have no ethanol in it. I have used it before with regular fuel, 87 octane, no problems, but for the most part, I keep the premium in it, put a little bit of fuel stabilizer, and it tends to run really, really well. So that engine also has this right beside it, the power head. You'll see me using this to go up and down. This is really nice, especially if you have a battery on your sawmill. Right beside this, you'll see a switch. This is custom. This switch is hooked up to these 2 lasers, one there and one over there. Those lasers, as you'll see me here today, put a line down the log and it shows me where the blade is going to cut. I tend to use that to speed up the process, and it also helps me to avoid hitting the log stops. That one especially, because the line's on the other side, I can see if the blade would hit the log stops, and if you've ever done that before, you don't want to do it again. Right on there is also a Lennox blade. At least that's what I think Woodland Mills sells, Lennox blades. Yeah, I torque it down to 25 foot-pounds. I know you can do the hand-tight method. I typically don't do that just because I had an older Woodland Mills sawmill where I always use the torque wrench, and that's what I'm used to, so that's what I continue to use. Anyways, we're pretty much warmed up. Let's get down to cutting. We're going to be cutting 5.5 inches. That'll be the finished distance between my top cut, log flipped over, and the bottom cut. Here we go. And just one more thing, you'll notice as I'm cutting I don't have lubrication. That is the case. I haven't used lubrication all winter. If I am going to use it for whatever reason, I will use washer fluid that you would typically put in a car. But I found this winter, because these logs are good and frozen. I haven't needed it. The blade cuts nicely. It stays cool, so no lubrication for me. raise the saw head when I drag it back and have it. Well, folks, I'd say that was a good afternoon. We got some logs up onto the log loader trailer. These will go up to my shop now. I'll debark them with my log peeling disc and angle grinder. Be sure to check out the video at the end of this one if you want to see some debarking. It's pretty cool. But anyways, we'll get those up to the shop. We'll get them debarked. Then we'll pile them up with the other ones en route to the new project that I hope to be starting before long. Now, overall, I think I did pretty well with the controls on the log loader here. There's one thing that you may be wondering: how long I've had this. Now, if you haven't been on the channel, you probably don't know I haven't had this that long, only a few months. And so I'm still learning the controls. I'm making sure that I'm working safely and trying not to bump into things. The controls are becoming second nature, but I'm not quite there. So with a bit more practice, I think you'll see things get even smoother. Now, in terms of the positioning of this log loader trailer, I put it in this location for a reason. Obviously, I need to pick up logs and move them over onto the sawmill, so I need to have the reach here. But I also need to make sure that the position doesn't allow me to hit the grapple off this post. So if you notice, when this is at full extension, which it is now, there is no way I can hit this post with that grapple. That's very important. So I always back up to approximately the same spot. I always keep it nice and close to the deck, and that way I can load logs, take things that way as well, and the grapple is not going to contact this this post here. Now, the other thing I have to pay attention to, and you probably see me looking up a lot, when you lift up, you're often looking at the log. But the truth is, this part right here, this part is often very, very close to the framing on the shed. So I have to constantly look up to remind myself not to bump anything. Anyways, we made some logs, we made some dust. I had a great time out here. I think that's the name of the game, so that's a win in my book. And one last thing here, talking about the sawmill. I mentioned a few minutes ago about the log clamp and something being wrong. Did you guys pick up on what that was? Here's the log clamp. If you have a look at it, see how it leans back? Well, let's look at this next one. This one doesn't lean back, this one leans forward. That log clamp, I believe, this piece here is upside down, or at least it's in the wrong position. I think I need to flip it over and put it back. This should be leaning forward as opposed to leaning back. I believe that's the way it's supposed to be anyways. So besides that, we ended up making a go of it. Cut some wood, it cut really well. I think the blade's got a bit more life in it, so I'm not going to take it off and change it for a sharp one quite yet. Overall, very, very happy with the sawmill. I continue to be happy with it. After sitting for like 2 or 2.5 weeks, it's nice to come out, fire it right up. Now, if I left it any longer, I probably would get the battery onto a battery tender or charger of some sort, but I didn't need to in this situation. The only issue I am running into is this. Look at that pile of snow. This came off the roof, and the sawdust is now just hitting it and falling onto the ground. If you haven't seen this where there's no snow, look at how high This is above the ground typically. That's like 4.5 feet of solid compacted snow. I thought about putting a bucket on the hook to catch the sawdust, but I don't think if I push the sawmill that way, it'll bypass that post. Maybe I got to move the sawmill over to do that. But anyways, that's a problem for another day. Hopefully before then I can get some melt going on so that before I come back it'll be gone. That might be wishful thinking, sort of like wishful thinking on cutting 5.5 inches out of some of those little small logs. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for me here today. I'm going to pull on out of here. I really appreciate you joining me. It's been a great afternoon. I hope you join me again where I get back out into the woods, do what I love to do. That's cutting wood. Guys, take care, be well. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you next time. And just as I'm heading out of the woods here today, big special thanks to Chris out on the east coast of Canada. Chris just sent me one of these wheel spinners, and I gotta tell you, I've never used one before, and now that I have, I'm not going back. Thanks, Chris. See you guys all next time.